Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show, What's Your College Story? I'm Katie Stroud with Eliconis. And today, our guest, who is here to talk about his college story, is Troy Kindle. And before we bring Troy in, I just want to share our QR code right here. We're running a survey. We want to hear more people's story, and this is a survey that kind of puts that into a chart and different, numbers that we can show in a report about what people are experiencing with college and or lack of it. So you can do that, and the link there is also it's a bit.ly link, and it's Eliconis, ELIKONAS dash survey, SURVEY. Okay. So we have here today Troy Kindle. Let me bring you onto the screen here. Okay, Troy. So you come to us from Chicago, Illinois, and we've been chatting. You have a very interesting story to tell us. So let's start with what you're doing today and what you like about that.
Yeah, so I've spent the last 20 plus years in learning and development, and more focused on developing programs and training. And the way I tell it to my kids when they ask me, I'm like, imagine having a teacher for companies where my job is to make sure people have the right training and education to, job skills, any type of programs that are going on in the organization. So. And that's what I do. I work with organizations. I help them basically develop who they are as an organization from uh, current state to future state. And that can encompass a lot of things. It's developing people, it's looking at how we develop the organization through restructuring. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey these past 20 years. And I love it because I'm actually helping people. And yeah, whether I'm working for companies like Google or companies like smaller mom and pop organizations. I'm focusing on how do I help organizations grow and become better through the people that they have. So that's something that really excites me.
I love that, and I love that you love doing that. And I want to come back to that towards the end of our talk because there's a lot of things buried in that I want to bring out. The idea that we're working with people in corporations. So you didn't exactly start out saying I want to be an L&D person when you were little, right? So how did you get there? Let's talk about that journey. Where did it start? You graduate, and then what?
Yeah, I graduated high school in 1996. So for those that are after the 2000s, seems like a long time ago, but
Isn't it funny?
uh,
Like it's like you were born in the last century.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I graduated in 1996. I went to junior college. I was able to go there for 2 years. And my focus when I was in junior college was to be a teacher. I was going there for secondary education. I loved school. I loved what I was doing. We just had a kind of a family tragedy happen where I needed to get away. So I did what any normal person would do, and I joined the military. So, yeah, so I spent some time in the United States Army. And then when I came back, I decided that I was done with school. I think at that time I was just, you know, dead set on getting a job, trying to earn money, starting a family, and I went into law enforcement. So it was actually kind of a complete, I don't say it's a complete shift, but I went from wanting to help people through education to helping people. About 5 years in my professional career in law enforcement, I really observed that I wasn't helping people like I wanted to, and I ended up had an opportunity to become and work for an organization to be a trainer or to train people. So I took the opportunity. I could always get back into law enforcement if I needed to, and joined the organization and spent about 8 years with them, being a trainer, teaching, educating. And I really found that I really loved doing it. And at a certain point, I realized that I couldn't go any further in my career because of education, skills that I had already had. I mean, I had a lot of people skills, but I didn't have a lot of skills on how does it all work, right? How does teaching and how does education actually work?
Mhm.
Um, so left there and left the organization I was with as a trainer and started working for an organization as their learning and development manager. And they gave me the opportunity to start going back and getting certifications. And as I started getting certifications, I started realizing I need a little bit more help than certifications, and was able to go back and start finishing my bachelor's degree. And I mean, I already had a leg up because I had my 2 year degree, but that bachelor's degree, going from that 2 year to bachelor's degree, it was an amazing experience for me because I was able to take my life experience and really focus it towards applying it to what I learned and knew to finish that degree. And from that point, finished my bachelor's, and I actually went back and got my master's degree, and both at DePaul University here in Chicago. Which um, shout out to any Blue Devils on the line here. So, but yeah, I mean that kind of takes me to current day, and I finished my master's degree in 2019. I'm sorry, 2022 is when I finished my master's degree. I finished my
Right, in the
bachelor's in 2019,
kind
so it's been
pandemic.
recent. So,
Yeah. Wow, so that's a bit of a journey. That was so you graduate high school, you did 2 years of junior college, jumped into the military, came back and did law enforcement. Um, Not really what you wanted to do in life, kind of led you to um, helping people by teaching them. Um, you mentioned something about the when you went back to school, you had those life experiences to better guide you on what it was you wanted to do with your life. And that's something I find really interesting. I started school also a little later in life, had some life experiences, and it did give me a lot more. It helped me have more direction and more like kind of a feel for what I wanted to do in life. And so many of these kids, they're going into school and not having that experience and kind of just trying to do something to check off the list, right?
mhm.
So, so that's interesting. So it helped you to better kind of see what sort of like classes you needed to take to do what you wanted to do in life. What were some of those classes?
Yeah, a lot of the classes I took when I was at DePaul were really focused in on, how do people learn? How do we structure learning around experiences that people have in life, which was very interesting because everything I had learned up until that point, I was able to apply. And, seeing how the framework that's used to actually build things, and what it did is it allowed me to really apply what I had already experienced, the successes I've had and a lot of the failures I had, because I was flying blind doing things, right? I knew it worked. I just didn't know why it worked.
Right.
And the courses that I was able to apply it on were, again, how do I structure things? How do people learn? A lot of the science behind what it means to, take a subject or take an outcome that you want to get from events that you do with folks, and get to that outcome through through a specific process or multiple different. There's obviously different processes, but really understanding, the reason, the why behind the actions. And yeah, and I think those are some of the courses that really allowed me to really tap into all that knowledge that I've gained through life experiences.
Right. And you mentioned that you got hired to work on in the L&D department, learning and development,
Yeah.
and um and so you got some certifications for that. Um what
Hmm.
sort of was it is it like I had gotten one in instructional design that was like a week long. uh,
Mhm.
boot camp, something like that.
Yeah, so I partnered with the organization. It was used to be called Association for Talent Development. I think now it's just TD or Talent Development. I think it's still associated, but they've renamed themselves a few times. But yeah, I've taken three or four of their master series. I've was able to go through their instructional design. How do you build out unified talent development? Or so those are the certifications that I use to supplement some of these things that I was doing,
Hmm.
but it still didn't provide a deep understanding of what it means, right? I mean, I wasn't doing any research. I wasn't doing any, you know, really deep learning around those areas. I mean, because I found those week-long sessions where they were good enough to get you to the point where you could apply concepts, but they were still missing some of that. I think we were joking earlier about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and things like that. I mean, I didn't know any of that stuff until I went back into university, right? So
Right.
that was where you start, looking at people that have spent their whole life studying what
Mhm.
it means to learn and what does it mean to be a human and really apply the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So
Right. Why don't you share with our listeners a little bit on what that hierarchy of needs is? I'm familiar with it, but I know a lot of people are not.
yeah, so Maslow's hierarchy needs, it's just a way of how people, the easiest way to say it is it deals with people's mental states and where they're comfortable being able to achieve and do things. And it's broken down into like five different tiers. The first is psychological, where, people are ensuring that they have food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep, reproduction. That's what they're focused on. So when people are at that tier, that is their overall focus. They're just focused on those parts of who they are. The next one's safety, which is, now that they've got that first tier, if they can satisfy that, then they're able to look at the next tier, which is again safety, which is looking at security, employment, resources, having a place to own their own property. They start worrying about their health and making sure they can satisfy those needs. And then if they can satisfy that tier, then they start looking at the next tier, which is, love and belonging, which is the relationships that we have, family, the friends, intimacy, building a community. And, as people, satisfy that need, then the next need is esteem, which is self-esteem and respect. They recognize their recognition of who they are as a person and freedom. And the last one is self-actualization, where they actually, if they've met all those other those needs, then they can really take the opportunity to really self-actualize who they are as an individual. And people that reach that tier are typically the ones that can really go forth and conquer the things that are they challenge or they're challenged with. So
Yeah, I kind of pulled up a website. If you
yeah,
look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can see that. And I brought it up because I just the visualization of it is it actually speaks a lot to the kind of people that we're trying to help here with Eliconis. In that, if you look at the top part of that triangle there, like that's kind of the people that college was meant for, that you have these other needs taken care of, and you can in fact focus on learning and realizing your full potential and everything. And yet, there's all the people down here that are looking for those psychological needs like food and water. Like, am I going to be able to make through it tomorrow, right? Anyone going through that is not going to be thinking about how am I going to better myself, right?
right.
Um, but but we here at Eliconis know that there's a journey. I mean, you went through a long journey yourself to realize what it was that you wanted to do with your life and actually apply that and do that in life. Um, and and college was built as like a 4-year program just to get that first
Sure.
degree, and it's all about sitting in the classroom thinking about all that self-actualization stuff. And so anyone else that is not in that space needs time. They need more time to get through surviving day to day before they can start looking at what can I learn to get out of the situation. And it's just it's interesting, right? I mean, we were talking just before the show and how we've gone through some challenging times in our lives. We grew up in different situations, and that takes it takes a certain amount of focus to break away from that a minute to learn about something that doesn't apply to that immediate moment of getting through the day, right? Um, and so let me just go ahead and stop sharing that. But but that's something that you've seen firsthand in the experiences that you've gone through and in working with corporations to help develop their people. How much of that sort of those needs are you seeing in those people, and how does that translate to making a company better?
I mean, if you look at what's happening right now, I mean, AI is a huge thing that, I mean, it's out of the toothpaste tube, as they say, right? You're not going to be able to put it back in the tube. And working with the company I'm at now, the challenge is we've got a pretty aged workforce. And when I say age, we have a lot of tenure in our organization where, if it's normal for someone who have been here for 20 years, which is not normal when you look at organizations kind of historically, or people or organizations I've worked with myself. Um, so we've got a lot of people that don't have the skill sets as AI is coming in. And so they are now at this position of safety. They're trying to understand, am I going to have a job tomorrow because is AI going to come in and take my role? Is it going to, what's it going to do? So my role in all of this is trying to help them understand that, AI is one of those things that if we use it correctly, we can actually make our jobs easier and become more productive in what we're trying to do. Because, again, there's a lot of unknowns still, but I'm of the camp of it's a tool, just like the internet was a tool, just like computers replaced typewriters was a tool. We just have to understand how we can leverage it to augment or upskill who we are and the skill sets we have. And that's one of the areas where looking at that hierarchy that I can pinpoint directly that I know these people are stuck. They're stuck here right now because they've been able to self-actualize themselves for 20 years in an organization. And now there's some uncertainty, there's some risk, there's things that are happening to them. So they're kind of degressing back down to say, what is my fight or flight response now to all the stuff that's happening, and how do I get to be where I was? So the stuff that I'm trying to do is, a lot of change management. I mean, learning and development. When you come down to you cut it down to its basic. It's a lot of change management. It's managing, the change that you're trying to get from yeah, having to work and then a cop apocalypse. There you go.
Somebody shared
But
this with me the other day, just like apocalypse, having to go to work. Somehow I cut off the words down below, but somehow we ended up here. And how, how do
yeah,
you deal with that?
yeah. And I think the thing technology is one of those things that as it's progressing fast, but I'm under the camp that it's always progressed fast, and we just didn't recognize the progressions that it took to get to where we are. I mean, we were talking, you and I we're from a different vintage, as they say. I mean, we were kind of I still remember landline phones, and I still remember pay
Yeah.
phones, and I still remember all that technology. And we're still here. We're still
Yeah.
here. We're still surviving. We're still figuring things out. And I think even with all this AI stuff, there's this opportunity for us to really self-actualize if we use it correctly. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like people are all worried about how technical and how crazy we feel a little bit blindsided by what AI is doing in the world today. And yet I remember as a teenager getting stranded somehow and needing to make a call to my mom to come and pick me up, and I had nothing, no change on me, no credit cards, no. I
Yep.
had to ask somebody for a quarter to use the payphone to make a phone call. And 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 when the pandemic hit, right? That's another kind of big thing that happened in the course of our lives. People were calling it a black swan, which is the idea that something exists that we didn't expect
Mhm.
and we're not ready for. And this AI thing, even though like all of our sci-fi is back, dating back to whenever sci-fi came out, it we always sort of had this idea that computers that like data in Star Trek would be fully almost autonomous. I mean, they're not that, but it feels like that someday,
Right.
you know. And 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 yet here we are. We're still here. We're still having to go to work. We're still having to figure out how to work with that and find jobs and feed our kids and everything.
Yeah.
Um, so coming back to a little bit about what Eliconis is and what we're trying to do. First, we're still building it, but second, it's about being able to collate all of those. You did some school, you did some certifications, you did some military training,
Mhm.
and you did some job experience, and all of those all taught you things leading up to you going back to school and getting your bachelor's and your master's. And and what we are lacking, I think, in today's world is the ability to show that you've learned all these things along the way. There's I mean, you could pull up a degree if you went to you could pull up your certifications, but they're all here and there, and it doesn't tell a complete story until like we're having this conversation and that journey that you did is coming together. And not only that, but like kind of like from the very beginning, kind of acknowledging that this is going to be a journey, that you're going to learn about yourself and you might change your mind as you go along. So Eliconis is about trying to capture that for every person. Um, it's a it'll be free for everyone, and it's something that people like you, people like me, people like Isera, who we had on last week, who has a vision impairment and can't always take classes that he has to drive to because he can't drive there, and so there's some limitations with what he can and I'm sorry, she can and cannot take. I have a lot of nieces and nephews. um, so, um, what are your thoughts about that? If you had something like that from the beginning, a way to sort of catalog all the experiences. So, it's not about just having that record, but you start to see a pattern, right?
Yeah, I think if I'm gonna take a deep dive look into where I was at, I think what drove me is again my background growing up the way I grew up. Again, I was lower. I would say we were upper lower class as well. I like to joke with people. I mean, I grew up in a trailer park. I grew up in a trailer. The way I grew up, um, I always wanted to help people, and that was really evident all through my formative years growing up. It's part of the reason why I joined the military. It's part of the reason why I do things now is I want to see other people succeed, right? I've had people help me all my life. So if I look at the different stops of my professional life, my personal life, it all comes back to that same theme of can I help others? And I think having a way to catalog those things and a way for you to, maybe coalesce or, put together and, I don't want to say an algorithm, but really look at, things you've done in your life,
Mhm.
um, can really put maybe somebody in the right path or get them in the right direction, in case if they don't know what they want to do. I
Right.
mean, a lot, I mean, you brought up, kids today, students today. I mean, I've, I'm old enough now to have a son that just graduated, college, and I've got one that started college and he doesn't want to do college. He wants to go in the trades, and
Right.
I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I'm like, just you have to make the choice of where you want to be, and think sometimes, society has really put this onus and put this kind of target on, you have to go to school or you have to do this or that. And I think sometimes we do these things without really understanding the purpose for ourselves. And, I'm lucky enough to have lived a life and had the experiences I've had and had the opportunities and taken those opportunities. But some people never get the chance to do the things that, you or I've done based on, just based on circumstance. So, I think anything that's going to allow people to really actualize, as we were talking about earlier,
Right.
is a tool that is valuable. And it doesn't mean you have to go to university, doesn't mean you have to go in the military, doesn't mean you have to do these things, but it does mean that you have to understand who you are and what you want, where you want to take who you are and the direction you need to go to make sure you're happy and to make sure that you've met your success. I mean, not everyone has to go to university or college or these things to be happy in life. It's just having an understanding of who we are is what really I think tools like this can actually help provide.
Right. You bring up somewhere in there, you brought up trade schools. You have a child that's interested in doing that, and that's another important piece. Like you don't learn how to weld by sitting in a classroom, right?
Right.
And yet that's a skill that you're learning. You've been trained on. You do
Hmm.
that. Like, why can't that count as an educational background that
Hmm.
makes you more valuable as an employer? Um, right. And I like the that you learning how to teach people, it was your way of helping people. And there's a lot of people that grow up in those challenging situations where they see that the people that are helping them, and they want to be those people. And for some people, that's helping them to learn more about themselves, about raising them up that triangle to get to that point, where we have gotten, where we've seen that I can do better, I can make a difference, and I can do something. For some people, it might be about fixing their wounds and helping them cope. For some people, that's about um, putting out the fires in their house, you know, and all of those things can make a living. There's a way to do what you want to do and make a living at it, even if it is helping people. If I would used to write as a child, and draw pictures, and people would be, "Oh, you're such a great writer." And then they would ask, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I would say, "Well, I want to be a writer." And the answer was, "Oh, no, 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 no. You can't be a writer. Nobody makes money at that unless you're like famous. Like you have to be famous to be a writer." And in the end, I became a technical writer, and I made a lot of money as a technical writer, and
Cool.
I was not at all famous, not even sort of. So this is my way of trying to reach out and to help people kind of realize their potential and how they can rise above the day to day, just trying to survive. So is there anything else? So a quick lightning round. What has been the best part of your education journey?
Um, I think the best part is, just continuing to learn. This idea of lifelong learning. Everyone keeps taught you've heard it to be a lifelong learner. Um, I think having the opportunity to go back to school, having the opportunity to, just continue that journey, um, it's really kind of kept the fire going. So, like I said, I want to go back eventually to get finish my degree, my doctorates. Um, but that's a few years down the road. I've still got younger kids that need me to be at home for right now, and that's a pretty big commitment. But I just, I think that's the biggest thing is seeing the fruits of the hard work you do through learning, through education, and really tying in your life experiences is what really kind of is a motivator to keep doing those things because, um, you know, we're all human and we're all here for a finite amount of time. It's making sure we're leveraging that time the right way and helping others as much as we possibly can. And that's what learning's done. It's what my journey's about, I think.
All right, I love that. So, favorite thing is to always be learning. Hardest thing.
The hardest thing,
Hmm.
time management. That is, I always
Right there
joke,
with you.
I'm like, yeah, can we get like 5 more hours in a day? And I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
sure I can fill them up. And it would just, no, I think that, honestly, the hardest thing is just balancing everything, life,
yeah.
work, the fun things you like to do, the hobbies, things like that. It's just, and again, all the stresses in life, those lower things on that pyramid that we were showing earlier. I mean, even though you've hit a certain point, you're still worrying about those things as well. So, state of the world today is kind of a lot crazier than it was, 4, 5, 10, 15 years ago. So, a lot of
There
unknowns.
is.
Yeah. So,
You say 15 years ago, we're talking 3 years ago.
100%. I think we're tracking on that one,
Right.
but yeah, I just like I said, I think that's the hardest thing is just balancing the balancing everything as everyone will probably have a very similar experience.
Okay. Um, One thing about you that most people don't know that you might
Um,
want them to know, like what one thing that people wouldn't know about you unless you like said it.
I am a huge Star Wars fan.
Excellent. I love that. I love that. Me too.
So as I'm drinking out of my Star Wars cup, of course, but most people that I meet, they're just like, yeah, they did not know that. Oh, I actually, I'm also heavily tattooed. Most people don't realize I have tattoos and things like that. And I work in a professional environment, and when I go sleeveless, they're just like shocked for the first time that they meet me. So
Right. Yeah, you do come off very like clean cut and stuff, but I love tattoos. I love that there's a way for people to decorate themselves in multiple
yeah,
ways. Hair colors. I have a couple of tattoos, but yeah. All right, awesome. My go-to one thing that people don't know about you is that I had a frog that lived for 9 years. Pet
a
frog.
frog for 9 years.
Nine
Was
years.
his name Kermit?
His name was Beavis.
Even better.
He, he ate like this, and it was funny. Anyway, thank you again, Troy, for being on the show today. I look forward to watching your story unfold more through LinkedIn. We're connected there. And just to our listeners, I'd like to say one more time, please fill out our survey, subscribe to the show, connect. And if you have a college story, whether or not you went to college, what I'm looking for is your education journey. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to share it on this show. So please reach out. You can do that through, well, you can email story@eliconis.com and I will get your request and we'll get you scheduled because the more people share their stories, the more the story is brought to life. And that's what we're trying to do here with Eliconis. So thank you again, Troy. I look forward to seeing you out there in the L&D world.
Thanks, Katie.
All right. Thanks, Troy. Bye.